States since 1776. 1776, the year America gained its independence. The path of totality will cross over 12 states. And what's interesting is that 12 million people or so live within that narrow band. 12, the number of God's government. For those of us who watch the prophetic signs in the sky, I wanted to look into this eclipse event a little more. We know that the blood moons from 2014 to 2015 all fell on Jewish feast days, an unprecedented fulfillment of prophecy in itself. And don't forget the 2 total solar eclipses that fell smack dab in the middle and at the end of the 4 blood moons on March 20th, 2015 and September 13th, 2015, respectively. To have all of these blood moons and total eclipses fall on these high holy days in succession is clearly a prophetic sign that should not be ignored. I first became curious about the Black Sun symbolism when David Bowie came out with his Black Star album right before his death in January of this year. A lifetime fan of Bowie, of course, I thoroughly realize he's a Luciferian who openly proclaimed his allegiance to Luciferianism and ancient occult practices like Kabbalah and Aleister Crowley. So when I view David's work, I view it through the lens for what it is, dark art that's fraught with occult symbolism from the Luciferian point of view. The album Black Star, with the single of the same name, is one deeply symbolic and compelling display of Bowie's last message to the world at the point before his demise, a signal or beacon to something which can only be sinister in its meaning. Bowie has always used his art to convey a message, as most, if not all, artists do. And it would be impossible to understand where Bowie is coming from if you do not realize his core belief system and worldview. Basic Luciferianism is the idea of sympathy for the devil. It's the idea that Lucifer got the raw end of the deal. He's the scapegoat, the one promised the world and sacrificed everything just because he wanted to enlighten God's creation, mankind, and give them godlike status. Luciferianism is based on the lie that the devil is the good guy, God is the tyrannical, unfair monster, and Jesus was sent to remove Lucifer from his rightful station as Messiah and God of this earth. What Luciferians fail to accept is that Lucifer is fallen, and any good standing he once had is gone and gone forever. He did not desire to enlighten mankind with great divine knowledge. That was a very subtle and seductive trick. He knew exactly what he was doing in the garden, which was to seduce Adam and Eve with the idea of becoming their own God, to reject the Most High God, and to rebel against him. But Luciferians don't look at that part of the story where Lucifer fell, and fell for good reason. They believe the devil is good, the one who advocates for mankind, who desires to bring us total enlightenment, knowledge, wisdom, and godlike status right here on earth. Beside the Black Star, Eclipse Sun symbolism and imagery in Bowie's video, one other main component that I found fascinating was the skull of Major Tom, the deceased astronaut who can only be interpreted as Lucifer himself. We are led to believe that Major Tom is indeed Bowie, who has passed away, and his skull, which is encrusted with fine jewels, is preserved for a ritual that is witnessed later in this video. But the astronaut is not Bowie, even in Bowie's own interpretation. The astronaut is none other than Lucifer, still in his covering of fine jewels that is spoken of in the book of Ezekiel 28, verses 13 through 15. Lucifer floating toward the Black Star is symbolic of Lucifer dying to his former self and will soon emerge in his rightful place. The story that Bowie unfolds with Black Star is in the Villa of Ormond, which means House of the Serpent, where a solitary candle burns, one source of light at its center. He goes on to say, on the day of execution only women kneel and smile at the center of it all. The day of execution is Christ's death on the cross. Commemorating this day, the Coven of Witches will execute a ritual which is at the center of the Villa of Ormond, or the House of the Serpent. He continues, something happened on the day he died. Spirit rose a meter, then stepped aside. Somebody else took his place and bravely cried, I'm a Black Star. Bowie is stating clearly here that on the day Jesus died, his spirit rose up and then stepped aside so that Lucifer can step into his place. Bowie goes on to ask, How many times does an angel fall? How many people lie instead of talking tall? He trod on sacred ground, he cried loud into the crowd, I'm a black star, I'm not a gangster. In other words, how many times does Lucifer fall? According to scripture, it's only once, and that's it. Realize that with the election of Donald Trump as the president, that a globalist coup executed by the deep state has been unleashed upon the world. One would have to be completely brain dead or brainwashed or both to not see that the neo-Marxist communist socialist overlords have manufactured an expertly devised campaign to resist Trump and his voting base at every turn. In this diesel commercial, the neo-Marxist utopia is cleverly portrayed using Trump's wall as the stumbling block between a conservative world and the neo-Marxist utopia where everything and anything goes. The wall is a symbol for the old way, and the youth in this story break through the wall to achieve their goal, the goal of the free world without any constraint. What is interesting, however, is the male model who stands alone on one side of the wall has a tattoo on his stomach of the Nazi Black Sun occult symbol. The irony here is that these are the people who see Trump as the Nazi figure and the wall as a form of fascism. Yet this male model is wearing a Nazi occult symbol that takes up a large portion of his upper body. What is represented here are two things. This population of young people represent the new world. The neo-Marxist world is the home of the superior race. In this utopia, the lawless and godless are the superior race in a utopian world, and they will break down any barrier to achieve it. The timing of this commercial is pivotal. The model wears the symbol of the black sun on one side of Trump's wall, which is scheduled to build at any time in the very near future. Perhaps the mindset of the breaking down of this wall, which is symbolized here on many levels, will take place at the time of the Great American Solar Eclipse.